banned and blacklisted from the WWE, all while still technically being signed to the company. I'm talking about Brock Lesnar. That Brock Lesnar is on some sort of TKO ban list. Next up is
I can imagine and I understand, but at the same time, like I said in the beginning, I think that if anybody was to be removed from this, it's going to be Brock Lesnar. So for now, he hasn't been charged with anything. So if he ends up getting cleared of these charges, I could totally see him making a return.
That is John Cena.
Oh!
What?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
You can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wrestling City, and today we're going to be doing a reaction video to one of Top 10 Wrestling's newest videos, and this one is titled the WWE Blacklist. So as we all know, there are certain wrestlers that, as you can kind of see from this thumbnail, that did something that didn't get in WWE's good graces, and as a result, they are basically not eligible to ever be rehired. Now, is Brock Lesnar on this list? If he should remain on it, I don't know, only time will tell. I feel like it's possible that he will be brought back, but all these other ones, I guess we'll find out their background story. Let's go ahead and get that one started right now.
In 2014, Zara Shriber was signed to the WWE and reported to the Performance Center. Zara Shriber had a very short-lived time in NXT, only lasting less than a year. Before that point, she had trained at the House of Truth Wrestling School being ran by Truth Martini and
Wasn't he
Jimmy
dating
Jacobs,
Rollins?
but despite having training, she never actually had a match while she was in NXT. She was one of those people in NXT who was only ever seen in the background of segments or used as an extra. For example, she was often used as a rosebud for Adam Rose, which obviously many other wrestlers
Everybody,
did.
yeah.
WWE seemingly must have had no idea what to do with her. They first started experimenting her by making her a ring announcer for a couple of live events and live shows alongside Dasha Fuentes, and then she would actually get an official role in the company when she would become the manager for Sami Callihan while he was doing his Solomon Crow hacker gimmick. She was playing the sister of Solomon Crow, and they started working together on live events, and this was a pretty good role for her to get herself. Had it ever made it onto TV? And had she ever made it onto TV? Because just 2 days after they debuted together at a house show, she was released from the WWE. And the reason stemming to her release was some old Instagram posts. Zara got herself wrapped up in controversy when old Instagram pictures with Nazi imagery were uncovered. This TMZ article about the situation reads as the following. WWE diva Zara Shriber, the girlfriend of WWE superstar Seth Rollins, has been fired from the organization because of pro-Nazi artwork she posted on her Instagram. Zara posted pics back in 2012 of swastikas and a My Little Pony character dressed as Hitler, one-arm salute and all. She removed the pics, but someone dug them up over the week.
First of all, yes, I was correct. I remember her being, the girlfriend of Seth Rollins during this time period, but I don't want to talk about this too much. YouTube does not like when you talk about this stuff, but I could totally see why she was fired as a result of this. Like, obviously she's not a good person if she's posting all of this, so it doesn't surprise me.
The WWE got wind of it and swiftly fired her due to inappropriate and offensive remarks. Zara said when she posted the pics, "I like history, ha." She also said, "The swastika means prosperity and luck. It was around way before Hitler turned it into an icon." Apparently, the WWE wasn't buying what she was selling.
The My Little Pony had a stash, though.
In old comments from 2012, Zara claims the reason she owns it is only because she is a history buff. But regardless, Zara would retire from wrestling soon after being released from the company, having only ever had one match, according to her cage match.
Wow.
Next up is David Benoir, who you might not be fully familiar with, but that last name is definitely one you recognize. As David Benoir is the son of Chris Benoir, and I am not going to explain the Chris Benoir story for the 1,000th time on
we all
YouTube.
know. Yep.
David is the last of the Benoirs, and for the last decade or so has had his foot in and out of the door in wrestling, and it was always known known that whenever WWE came to his hometown of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, he would always be invited and welcomed backstage to a WWE live, times backstage at WWE events, until one day in 2020 when he revealed that he had actually been banned from attending WWE live events. And it's not for the reason you'd think, as you'd probably imagine that he was banned due to his connection to Chris Benoit and the Benoir name, but no, as it turns out, he was banned from attending WWE events backstage due to him wearing an AEW jacket backstage at a WWE event once and taking a picture with Tony Khan, the owner of AEW. As David Benoit revealed in a Chris Van Vliet interview, that was because he went to an AEW show and he had to clear the air after 5 months before he was finally unblacklisted from WWE events.
Yeah. And then you mentioned on Darren's podcast that you were banned from being backstage at WWE.
Yes.
Is that still a thing?
No.
Okay, so why were you banned?
Going to AEW.
Just going to one of their events?
Yep.
That
blows my mind, bro.
Wow.
I had to make a few phone calls and...
Did someone reach out to you and go, "You're no longer welcome here," or did you like ask for tickets and they said sorry?
No, I was trying to talk to someone, but they never got back to me for like a good 4 to 5 months.
Oh, and they would usually get back to you?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm not buying it.
But that's now fine?
Everything's fine now.
How did this get ironed out?
I talked to their lawyer.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And then I talked to Mark Carano after.
Okay. All right. So you're welcome everywhere now.
Welcome everywhere now. We're good.
Okay.
Next up is a man who was...
Okay, so first of all, I am not buying that. Maybe that's the reason they gave, but we all know the reason, and that was probably just a, they had to give a reason to make him, to distance him from the company, so they use this, because there's been several instances in which people have been to an AEW show, and then they came back, and obviously you can't be doing that constantly, and maybe taking the picture with Tony Khan was probably not the best idea, but we all know what the main issue is. Unfortunately, the Benoit name is tied to him, and that's not something he can easily escape because, as you can see, he looks like his father. I mean, he has a very uncanny resemblance to him, and that's not anything he can really escape. Now, I've heard that he wants to continue using the Benoit name in wrestling, and that's obviously not my place to determine if that should be, if he should do that, because ultimately that's his family's name, so he is the one who decides what's most fitting or appropriate to use it or treat it. But let me just tell you, it's not, you're basically blacklisting yourself from WWE by using that last name. It's not going to work out. You're not going to overwrite that tragedy that happened. It sucks for him, though, for sure.
Banned and blacklisted from the WWE, all while still technically being signed to the company. I'm talking about Brock Lesnar. As Brock Lesnar is a man who ran rampant through WWE as one of their biggest homegrown stars in WWE history through the mid-2000s and Ruthless Aggression era, being one of the top guys in the company and winning multiple world titles before abruptly quitting the WWE to try his hand in NFL. Obviously, this didn't work out and he would end up in the Ultimate Fighting Championship competing in MMA and would be a UFC World Heavyweight Champion and a huge success story for the UFC, being one of their biggest pay-per-view draws ever before he finished up there and returned back to WWE in 2012. And for the next decade, he would compete in main events, win world titles, and would be a special attraction for WWE as he was on a more part-time schedule. And he was set to appear in the 2024 Royal Rumble match, making his return after a brief stint away from the WWE due to his part-time schedule. However, just a few days before the Royal Rumble, a lawsuit was filed against the WWE and Vince McMahon by Janelle Grant, a former WWE employee, who had made many allegations against Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis, and more specifically against an unnamed WWE wrestler who was also a former UFC fighter. Now, obviously he wasn't named, but many people were able to deduce, and the Wall Street Journal would identify the name as Brock Lesnar, which led to Brock Brock Lesnar being pulled from the Royal Rumble just days before it happened, and Brock Lesnar has not been seen in the WWE since, as the lawsuit is still ongoing. Any and all references to Brock Lesnar have been removed or changed, such as replacing him in the intro to the shows and taking him out of the video games. And like I said, Brock Lesnar is still signed to the WWE. He has not been fired, his contract has not been terminated, he is just blacklisted whilst being signed. There's been speculation about him returning at certain points and fans trying to create those rumors, such as recently with SNME, people thought he was going to come back then after the Gunther Goldberg match. However, it seems as though Brock Lesnar is indeed on some sort of banned list, as Daniel Cormier, a former UFC fighter, would reveal on a podcast that Brock Lesnar is on some sort of TKO ban list. Next up is
I can imagine, and I understand, but at the same time, like I said in the beginning, I think that if anybody was to be removed from this, it's going to be Brock Lesnar, because I don't know 100% honestly. Like, first of all, I still remember this situation when it first happened, when this lawsuit was dropped. Vince McMahon was named, obviously, John, and then Brock eventually. I still remember the internet was going crazy, and I know some details about it. Brock is a freaky dude. I know some of it was questionable at best. But at the same time, like this said, this is an ongoing situation. So for now, he hasn't been charged with anything. So if he ends up getting cleared of these charges, I could totally see him making a return. It really just depends on what happens legally, you know, if they find out that he actually did do this stuff and charge him appropriately, you know. But I could see things change or turning around for sure. But until then, no Brock Lesnar in WWE.
Gentleman Jack Gallagher, who managed to break into the WWE through
That
the
tattoo
Cruiserweight
is
Classic
ridiculous.
tournament, but his career in wrestling came crashing down in 2020. So like I said, Jack Gallagher first broke out in WWE in 2016 as part of the Cruiserweight Classic, where he was eliminated in the second round, but he was eventually signed to the WWE to be part of the brand new returning Cruiserweight division, and he would mix himself in with the Cruiserweight division. And whilst Jack Gallagher was never a big player in the division, he was one of the only people in the division to have any sort of actual character, so I guess that can be given to him. He played a classic British gentleman chap gimmick, where he would carry around an umbrella like Mary Poppins and jump off the top rope with it. At a certain point, he even turned heel and started wrestling in a full suit, but the entire gimmick ended up getting dropped entirely in 2020, probably due to Jack Gallagher getting some massive ass chest tattoo that wouldn't go with the gentleman character whatsoever. So maybe it was the start of a new change for Jack Gallagher, but that would not happen, because on 19th of June 2020, a 2014 sexual misconduct allegation was made against Jack Gallagher as part of the Speaking Out movement. He was released by the WWE the same day, having accepted responsibility for the incident in a dialogue with management. And he would release his own statement months later following his release.
I didn't release a statement because it didn't feel the right thing, blah blah blah. I met a woman part 6 years ago. Oh, wow. That sounds like a murky situation for
from
sure.
WWE saying, in 2014 at a New Year's Eve party, I met a young woman and my behavior towards her was inappropriate. As this party was nearly 6 years ago and I had drunk quite a large amount of alcohol that night, unfortunately, I do not recollect what happened. I wish to make it clear that drinking is not an excuse for my behavior that night. I want to express my deepest regret, and I am genuinely sorry for the upset that I have caused. Gentleman Jack Gallagher has not been seen entirely in wrestling since. However, you might be able to find him in various combat sports endeavors such as bare knuckle boxing and MMA, as that's what he's taken up since leaving WWE, currently holding a 2-3 record, with his most recent fight taking place last month and him being knocked out in 47 seconds.
Oof. Damn. And you can tell with the way he said that at the end, like he drank so much alcohol, he doesn't recall what happened and that he doesn't condone his behavior, what could have happened. You know that there's some guilt or admission in that statement. I don't know what happened legally, you know, I don't know much about this situation, but Yeah, man, I could totally see why he ended up getting blacklisted from WWE, and now looks like a huge fall from grace. 2-3 record in MMA is, yeah, not very good. In 46 seconds, too. Ooh.
Next up is Jackson Ryker, who killed his WWE career with a singular tweet. Chad Lale was born on June 6, 1982, and would go on to serve for the US Army in Iraq. He would make his professional wrestling debut in the year 2000 under the name of Shatter, with that name then being adjusted to Phil Shatter. He would spend the next decade working across the indie scene, mainly wrestling for NWA Anarchy and other promotions across Georgia and the Carolinas. He won the NWA Anarchy Heavyweight Championship as well as the NWA National Championship, the latter of which he held for 2 years and is the all-time longest reigning champion.
Damn.
He made an appearance on a Ring of Honor pay-per-view in 2010, and also in 2010 would begin sporadically appearing in TNA wrestling.
I didn't know he wrestled for that
began using
long.
the name of Gunner and would appear alongside Murphy, playing the roles of TNA security guards and occasional wrestlers. And Hogan must have saw something in these guys, because they would start appearing on TV a lot, and they would join the Immortal stable, which at the time was the biggest thing in TNA.
I remember Gunner.
At February 2011,
I didn't know that was him.
pay-per-view, Gunner would wrestle his first TNA pay-per-view match, a 6-man tag, himself, Murphy and Rob Terry against James Storm, Robert Roode and Scott Steiner, which sounds like the most one-sided match of all time. Gunner and his team would of course lose the match, and is there a single person who would have wanted otherwise? Gunner was signed to a full-time TNA contract in 2011, and from here we would go on to see this guy every single week on TV, and he would go from being a security guard into a member of the active roster, and like I said, he was on TV every single week. On the March 17, 2011 edition of TNA Impact, Gunner would defeat Murphy and Rob Terry in a 3-way match to win the vacant TNA Television Championship, in a move that really came out of nowhere and was probably only done to get more gold within the Immortal group. He defended the title against Daniels once before losing it to Eric Young in May of 2010 in a 15-second match, and the TV title was truly dead by that point. He would stick around in TNA for a few more years, mainly as a mid-card member of Immortal, but when Immortal ended, and more specifically when Hulk Hogan was gone from the company entirely, there wasn't really much else for Gunner to do in TNA. He had a 4-month tag title reign with James Storm in 2013, but that's about the last notable thing that Gunner did in TNA following the split of Immortal, and before he would officially finish up with the company in June of 2015 and depart from TNA Wrestling. He would return to the independent scene before in 2017 he was signed by the WWE. It was reported on May 29, 2017 that Chad Lale had signed a developmental deal for the WWE, and the very next month he was working the NXT house show circuit under his real name of Chad Lale. And he would continue exclusively on the house show scene for quite a while. He would actually wrestle on the house show scene all the way until August of 2018.
Wow.
He signed for WWE in May 2017, but August of 2018 is when he finally got his first NXT TV appearance. And by that point though, Lale had a whole new identity in the WWE. He was now called Jackson Ryker, and he'd begun appearing alongside Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler on house shows, calling themselves the Forgotten Sons. The Forgotten Sons would begin appearing as a trio in NXT when they made their debut as a trio in September of 2018. And yeah, they were just an awkward fit in NXT to say the least. NXT, of course, already at the time had a top heel stable in the Undisputed Era, and that made it very hard for the Forgotten Sons to stand out.
They just look so
and
generic.
break out from the crowd in NXT. Jackson Ryker acted as the muscle of the group, whereas Steve and Blake were the ones mainly wrestling as a tag team, and Jackson Ryker was portrayed as being a fairly strong character in the WWE at first. He would only wrestle singles matches occasionally, and while the Forgotten Sons as a duo or a trio would often be on the losing side of matches, Jackson Ryker all the way until 2019 had never been pinned or submitted in singles competition. But that would be broken and shattered by Tyler Breeze in June of 2019, who beat him in a 3-minute match. And then from there, himself and the Forgotten Sons were very rarely on the winning side when they did wrestle on TV. They were pretty much a certified jobber trio in NXT. And even so, they were hardly ever wrestling on TV. On the April 10th, 2020 edition of WWE SmackDown though, the Forgotten Sons would make their main roster debut, probably because they didn't know what to do with them in NXT. And hey, the Forgotten Sons actually debuted very strong. They first defeated the Lucha House Party, and then they defeated the tag champions, The New Day, leading to them challenging for the titles in a 4-way tag match at Money in the Bank that year, where they were unsuccessful. So far, so good though. A good start to life on the main roster for the Forgotten Sons, and they've already done more than they ever did in NXT. But that good start for the Forgotten Sons would actually be the end of the Forgotten Sons. That match at Money in the Bank was Steve Cutler and Wesley Blake's final ever WWE match. And it was all because of a single tweet. On June 2nd, 2020, Jackson Ryker tweeted the following: "Thankful for the President of the United States we have. God bless America. Built of freedom, forgotten no more." And this was obviously tweeted during a very heated political climate, obviously during the pandemic and the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, two things I'm not going to talk about because I dread to read the comments. And this tweet got Jackson Ryker a lot of heat from the rest of the WWE locker room, with other wrestlers in the WWE publicly responding to him on Twitter. Mustafa Ali responded saying, "I'm thankful you posted."
I just don't understand. Like I said on the last video talking about Hulk Hogan, I'm gonna kind of steer away from the politics stuff too, but I do think it's kind of weird because it was posted June 2nd of 2020, so like that's not near an election time. It doesn't seem there was much of a purpose besides just to, I guess, just to make his political stance known, you know. And it seems like during this time period, like they said, the Black Lives Matter movement was ramping up, so it was kind of just throw it out there, you know, like why would you sabotage your career like that? Yeah, let this be a good lesson to learn. Don't just randomly put your political opinion out there if you're trying to be an upcoming wrestler fighting for the, you know, to get higher within the company, because stuff like this is gonna happen.
This because I'm now aware of what you stand for. When black brothers and sisters are crying, you praise someone that refuses to acknowledge their hurt. Kevin Owens responded to him saying, "The freedom you speak of entitles you to speak your mind all you want. I'm not here to argue that. I just really need to tell you that I think you pushing your shitty wrestling catchphrase as all of this is happening is absolutely fucking pathetic."
Wow.
Good night. There was responses from Batista, Sami Zayn, Ricochet, as well as numerous others, and safe to say, Jackson Ryker was in a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And as a result, the Forgotten Sons were taken off of WWE television. And while Steve Cutler and Wesley Blake were eventually released in February 2021, Jackson Ryker would remain in the company and would begin appearing on Raw in December 2020, aligned with Elias. It was a very random alliance, was never really explained why it was happening, and of course, it never went anywhere. Elias turned on Riker in May of 2021, thus turning Jackson Ryker face for the first time in his WWE stint. A very bold move by the WWE given all the controversy he'd been surrounding in, and also just a very random move in general. Jackson Ryker, or Gunner, or whatever he worked as, was never usually a babyface. The feud between Jackson Ryker and Elias would finish following Ryker defeating Elias in a strap match, and then in a Symphony of Destruction match. And then after this, Jackson Ryker became a mainstay of main event. Meaning, yes, that entire Elias feud and program was a complete and colossal waste of time. His final match on Raw took place on the 27th of September 2021, losing to Karrion Kross in just a couple of minutes. And his final WWE appearance was on a main event episode in November before he was released from the company that same month on the 18th. Since being released, Jackson Ryker returned to the independent scene, but would only be wrestling occasionally after his return. And finally is Drew Gulak, whose career in the WWE came to a crashing halt following allegations of misconduct from Ronda Rousey. Drew Gulak first started appearing for WWE during the summer of 2016 in the Cruiserweight Classic tournament. Prior to this, Gulak was a stalwart of the US indie scene, having wrestled everywhere in the States and being a big influence on the scene. He made it to the second round of the Cruiserweight Classic tournament, where he was eliminated by Zack Sabre Jr. on July 14th, 2016, but from here he was officially signed to the WWE as part of the Cruiserweight division. He was just a regular heel jobber at first, as the Cruiserweight division was very quickly pushed to the side by WWE, but when 205 Live came around, he would start to show more more character, as he would take on a gimmick that would see him being an anti-high flyer and wanting a better 205 Live. He would protest by holding no-fly zone signs and presenting PowerPoints every week with his suggestions on how to improve 205 Live. It was probably the most entertaining act in the entire division, and he challenged for the title a few times that year but never came out successful, and going into 2018 would get rid of the PowerPoint gimmick and just become a submission specialist. It wouldn't be until Stomping Grounds 2019 when Gulak won his first and long overdue Cruiserweight Championship, defeating Tony Nese for the belt. He'd hold the belt for about 3.5 months before losing it to Lio Rush in October, and then was drafted to SmackDown, where maybe his career in the WWE was about to get a new beginning. But once again, he just started jobbing out again, but in 2020 did get a little bit of a program with Daniel Bryan, which saw him face him on a pay-per-view in a great match and even team with him for a bit. But the team would fade away after Bryan went off TV during the pandemic, and Gulak had a short-lived departure from the WWE as his contract expired, but he was back literally 2 weeks later. And he'd spend the next few years doing various things, jobbing, being an authority figure, a road agent, and even a backstage interviewer. But in late 2022, he went to NXT, and the next year he'd start the No Quarter Catch crew alongside Charlie Dempsey, Damon Kemp, and Miles Bourne. It seemed like Gulak had finally found his footing as the Catch crew got regular TV time for the next year in NXT. However, Drew Gulak's career would end up crashing down out of nowhere. In April 2024, Ronda Rousey did an interview talking about her experience in the WWE and talked about a time in 2022 where Gulak randomly grabs the pull strings of her pants to her discomfort. Drew Gulak would respond by saying it was an accident after he went for a handshake, but WWE have seemingly taken these actions.
Yeah, I remember this now. Now that I'm seeing more about it. I saw him, I stopped and said hi to shake all their hands. In an attempt to shake her hand, I accidentally touched her drawstring. So, like, I guess maybe they could have done, like, an underhand shake, but, like, usually when you go for a handshake, you don't get in a position where you accidentally grab her drawstring. You know? Like, that's a, complete accident. Very, very suspicious circumstances.
Seriously, as he was written off TV and out of the Catch Crew stable instantly. Gulak would officially depart from WWE weeks later following an internal investigation and has since returned to the independent scene. He still wrestles very frequently for independent promotions, but there's a very good chance we'll never see him in WWE or a major promotion period ever again.
Yeah, man, so that was another banger video from Top 10 Wrestling. I will put the link to the original video in the description, so if you want to check that out yourself, go ahead and do that. First, some people on here, so Jack Gallagher and Drew Gulak, both of them, man, it really reminds me 205 Live in early 2017, like late 2016, when it was Neville, like Rich Swann, Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali. Dude, this was such a great time period for 205 Live. It was really enjoyable to watch every week. It's just such a shame that some of these top stars are ones that had character, you know, the no-fly zone promoter dude, Drew Gulak, and then the gentleman, Jack Gallagher. They both had, didn't seem to be good people in real life, or at least treat other women with respect, and that's kind of a deal breaker, you know. So some of these I can see returning because they're not like, you know, it's still murky terms. Jackson Riker, I could see maybe people forgiving him, but he's just such a boring character. I don't know if they will care enough to rehire him. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, comment what you think about this video below, and don't forget to subscribe to the greatest city in the world, Wrestling City. But that's about it. I will see y'all next time. Peace.